Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. It is so good to be together in all the ways that we can do that. Folks who are here online, you are welcome to keep your video on throughout the service. So nice to see each other's faces. Please keep your audio off, but know where that unmute button is for the end of the service. When we'll have a chance to greet each other in the room and across zones. Online attendees, you can see the order of service by following the link in the chat. If you're here on the UUCPA campus, you can scan the QR code at the welcome table anytime you want an electronic order of service, or you can always pick up a paper copy there. Just take note of the fact that there's a lot of hyperlinks hinted at there, and that you should go to the website to follow and get much more information about that. A couple of things to remember as you arrive. One is, as Judy has just reminded us, if you'd like to share a joy or a sorrow, you'd like people to hear me share that out loud, online you can do that through the chat, and anybody, wherever you are, can do it by writing to joyconcern@uucpa.org. I will check that email right up to the minute, but you can also fill out a card right here, light a candle if you wish. And also, since we have so many doors, symbolic as that is, into this space, it can be really hard to remember that everybody needs to go around and check in. If you are here on campus, indoor or outdoor on a Sunday, please go by the welcome table and just let them know, get your name and contact information, because we do contact tracing on those occasions when somebody has tested positive shortly after being here. We want to cut down on community spread. Okay, aside from that, I have a couple of important announcements for you. One is 2 conversations that are going on. One is today during second Sunday lunch. I hope you will stay, have lunch, and at your table there will be a host of a mission conversation, somebody from the mission task force, or me. I've been deputized, even though I'm not on that task force, to lead a conversation about what are we doing here? What is UUCPA for? We want to hear it from all of you. Also, a conversation going on that will be continued this Thursday right here at 4 o'clock is, should we go to one service year-round? And I would love your input on that. If that time isn't good for you, let me know. We will set up more times or talk one-on-one. And finally, before I invite Karen up here, this is a particularly good day to take note of the fact that we have stickers with different pronouns up available at the welcome table, and it is very welcoming for everybody to have a sticker that says, when I'm not in the room, here is how you refer to me. They, he, she, ze, etc. People, especially who use pronouns besides he and she, regularly inform us. That feels really welcoming, to recognize that a pronoun is not obvious from the way somebody looks. Today is the day we give our offering to our justice partner for this month, and so I would love to hear from Karen Skold, who has a very persuasive reason why we should give generously to our justice partner. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm really happy to announce once again that our justice partner for the month is South Bay Sanctuary Covenant. This is a group that was founded 40 years ago to give physical sanctuary to refugees from the Civil War, funded by the U.S. government. And our church was among a bunch of churches that founded this organization. After the war, we changed our focus to supporting a small rural community that was founded at the end of the war by survivors, to help them build their community from nothing, literally nothing, into a thriving small community now. And every year we go and visit them, and every year we raise funds for one or more small projects that they decide they need. And this year, we are helping to raise funds for repairs to a child development center that serves several villages in the area. It's in terrible shape. It's in bad repair. If you stop by the Action Council table, you can see pictures of it. There's a flyer that talks about this special appeal for the Child Care Center. So we are doing well on fundraising. It's a small project. Several congregations have already pledged significant amounts of funds, and we could actually put it over the top today if we all give generously. So just think about those adorable little preschoolers and the shabby place where they have to go to school. They'll be on break in December, so that's when the repairs will happen. So we have to have the money before then. So thanks very much. Oh, and I will be going again in November. This will be like my 16th trip to El Salvador with this group, and I'll come back and tell you about it if you want to hear. And it's the 30th anniversary of our partner community, so that'll be exciting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a challenge. I want us to be the ones to put them over the top today. And then when Karen is there, she can see, okay, this building is going to happen in the months to come. Let us now begin our service. We have the marvelous Melanie DeMore leading us all in song. So, Melanie.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So glad to be here with all of you. And I can see you smiling at me. Don't think I can see. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Here's how it goes. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Now, it helps if you get your sway on. Come on. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Oh, every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. And how truly blessed are we to be here together with each other like in real persons. It's incredible. Hello, people up there. And every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Oh, every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. One more time. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here. Every breath, every day, every prayer, every song, I am here.
Today's chalice lighting is titled Welcoming the Stranger. A child journeys far from home, fearful and brave, in need of safe harbor. Guided by this chalice, may we seek to understand the causes of flight. Like the comfort of a candle flickering in a window of darkness, let us welcome this child into our home with warmth, nourishment, and love. Would we not want the same for our own child, lost and alone in a strange land?
Temeroso y valiente, careciendo de un puerto de asilo. Guiados por este cáliz, tratemos de comprender las causas de huir, como el consuelo de una vela encendida en una ventana oscura. Demos bienvenida a este niño, a nuestra casa con simpatía, alimento y cariño. ¿No quisiéramos lo mismo por nuestro propio niño, perdido y solo en tierra extranjera?
With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from the biblical book of Genesis. So she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. You are a God who sees me. For she said, have I really seen him here who sees me? As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, we allow ourselves to arrive here fully.
This is the time in our hour together when we turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. If you're on Zoom, you can share it in the chat. As I said, anybody can, with a device, can send an email to joyconcern@uucpa.org, and you can maybe even still have time to put a card in here, because I want to call a couple of more global concerns into our space here. One is that this coming Tuesday is National Coming Out Day, a day that we celebrate with this service and year-round. We work to make a welcoming space, our welcoming congregation to people of all gender identities, all sexual orientations, all people who are questioning where they fall in any of those spectra. It's also a day of concern, recognizing that there are many people around the world and right here in our community who do not feel safe, for whom it is not safe to come out. And let our hearts be with them, that they can find integrity and dignity even as they have to hide something very important about themselves. Also, tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day. And it's a good moment for us to remind ourselves, as we do from time to time when we gather, that right here in our sacred space, we are on stolen, unceded land of the Tamian and Ramaytush peoples, many of whom still live among us, but without the right to the land that they once tended and from which they benefited. And it is a good time to remember the solidarity of all of us, whatever our ethnic backgrounds, with the indigenous people around the world, and especially right here in our community, some of whom, like the Amamutsun, are struggling very much to have their sacred spaces recognized and preserved. Well, let us take a little time of silent prayer or meditation to hold all that we have heard with compassion and care. Blessed be. Please join in singing Dear Mother, Father of Us All. It is number 274 in the gray hymnal. If you're online, the words are there for you in your order of service. tune for us using the same words that Theodore Parker in the 19th century always used when he began a prayer in his Boston Unitarian congregation. Dear Mother, Father, God. There's a time in services in many traditions, and so we've begun to introduce it into our services, that's often called confession. We might call it recommitment, reparation, or repair, because that is how reparation of relationships and of our world begins, with our each acknowledging in the sanctuary of our own hearts and our own consciences, how have we fallen short? What might we recommit to be more the people that we want to be? And so we can go forth from this place to repair and do better. So let us take some time of silence now to reflect on how we might wish to redirect our lives from how they've been over the last week. In our striving, let us remember we are not alone. We have this community, we have this tradition, we have the divine in all its forms, and here we have these principles that direct our attention to just those things. So in your hymnal, if you turn back one page before the first hymn, you will find the principles that this congregation shares with 1,000 others. Again, if you're online, they're there in your online order of service. When I have introduced them, will you join me? We, as a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Let us sing a hymn to the Spirit that helps us to live out these and all our values. If you'll please rise in body or spirit, we'll sing number 123, Spirit of Life. Again, if you are online, you'll see the words in your order of service.
Today's reflection stands at the intersection of the two most essential facets of my human experience. On one hand, I come to you today as a non-binary person who turned away from my assigned masculinity at birth and now uses they, them personal pronouns. On the other hand, I also come to you as a theistic Christian UU for whom the Lord's Prayer, with all its traditional masculine language of Our Father, is the hinge around which my spiritual practice pivots. These two experiences are in tension, but rather than being a sign of contradiction, tension is a force bringing things together. How will I bring together my experiences of gender and spirituality? For me, the answer lies in the story of Hagar from the book of Genesis, which we read from in our centering words. If you aren't familiar with this story, Hagar, an Egyptian enslaved and mistreated in the household of Abraham and Sarah, fled from them while pregnant into the wilderness, where her life was sustained by a spring of water. An angel of God found her, however, and told her to return to her mistress's household, but not without leaving her with bountiful promises about her son Ishmael and the assurance of God's consolation. All this time, however, Hagar did not know God's name. Hagar did not call upon the name of God like her master Abraham did, and she certainly was not Moses, who had the privilege of having God's name be revealed to him. All Hagar could do was make up a name for the transcendent God she experienced, and her name was El Roi, or God who sees me. I use the phrase made up purposefully. This was the one and only time that God was ever called by this name in the Bible. I find this story striking because Hagar's spiritual experience of God seems in no way diminished by her lack of knowledge of God's proper name. Notice use of scare quotes. If anything, her spiritual experience seems elevated because she had the blessing of knowing God by a name which no one else ever knew God by before her or since her. Perhaps for Hagar, God who sees me is God's proper name because that name speaks to the truth of her unique experience of God and to what she cherishes. Names are one way by which we refer to people and to God, and pronouns are another. When I call God our Father and Him, I cherish how the traditional words bridge me to other Christians, many with very different beliefs, and how they speak to the possibility of a positive masculinity, more in line with infinite loving kindness and mercy, rather than domination and patriarchy. But my cherishing of God through he, him pronouns is my particular experience. And for someone else, they, them, or she, her pronouns might be more true to their experience. In the end, it falls upon my mind that a God worth worshiping is too vast to be contained by one person's experience of them, or one person's name for her, or one person's pronouns for him. As far as I am concerned, we may as well address God by whichever pronouns we please. But if our pronouns do not speak to what we cherish about God, what have we gained by doing so? And today's reading comes from the book of Psalms. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is thy name in all the earth. Thou whose glory above the heavens is chanted by the mouths of babes and infants. Thou hast founded a bulwark because of thy foes to still the enemy and the avenger. When I look at thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast established, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou dost care for him? Yet thou hast made him little less than God, and dost crown him with glory and honor. Oh, the front. Okay.
So in the true spirit of the communal music making of this service, we're going to ask you to sing along with us if you'd like to. We're doing Gaudium Storie by Atlas. It is in your great hymnal. It's number 319. So you'll notice there are 3 numbers. So each of those numbers is the beginning of a section of the piece. They're meant to be sung all together. So my super conscientious choir is saying, what if I sing the wrong part at the wrong time? And I said, it literally doesn't matter. So I'll say that to you. Sing whatever part feels good, whatever you feel like it.
I said in my introduction on the website that we were going to invite God out of the closet this week and talk about God's pronouns. And I'm aware that in doing that, I might be making some of the atheists in the congregation, of whom I know there are many, scratch their heads, wonder, when am I going to get out of this? I don't even believe in God. I don't need to worry about God's pronouns. Stick with me. This is for you too. But I want to begin with the choir who just sang for us. The choir, as you may know, if you've been to this 11 o'clock service before, usually ends our service with a sung benediction. Very traditional prayer May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. A lovely prayer. And it ends, it has traditionally ended, with, until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. It's a lovely, very human image for God, and, being that we have a gendered language, a male image for God. It's a male hand. At some point a few years ago, the choir started saying, that's a little limited and limiting, and started alternating between may God hold you in the palm of his hand and may God hold you in the palm of her hand. Offering a very different way of thinking about God, and therefore thinking about ourselves. After all, we who come here are not all male, and it's nice to be seen and heard in the images we have of the divine. Well, time went on. The choir kept thinking. Our culture kept changing, led often by people on the margins, as it often is. And one of those groups that has been pushed to the margins is people for whom neither he nor she seems descriptive, who choose some other pronoun. There are many interesting neo-pronouns out there, and then there is the very old gender-neutral pronoun of they. The week that I came to church to hear the choir for the first time sing, "May God hold you in the palm of their hand," I had come to church with a heavy heart. A dear friend of my family had died at the age of only 31. And although I knew then and know many more people now who use the pronoun they were the dearest, the closest to my family and my heart. And although I hear myself when the choir sings, "May God hold you in the palm of her hand," I don't know what it's like to be a person who is gender queer or gender non-binary and need to hear those pronouns as well. I knew that I felt that something about my life was seen and acknowledged and reflected by those words, by that word in particular, that day, that my dear friend for whom we were mourning so heavily would have been able to see themselves in our service. And so I saw them too. Really, in a way, that's where the sermon could end. That's where theology becomes so important regardless of what we believe. And as a long-time non-believer in God, I am embarking on yet another theology degree right now. Because theology is, yes, it's very much about God and what human beings have said and believed and claimed about God, but it's also about us. Theology is anthropology. It's how do we see ourselves. So, as we know, the dominant image of God in the Bible, in both the Jewish and Christian tradition, is male. And along came feminist theologians 50-ish years ago in this culture to say, hold on, wait a minute. There's a real problem there. It seems to us that this is unnecessarily, inaccurately limiting God, limiting our tradition, and furthermore, we don't think it's a coincidence that the people who have run the church, who have taken so much authority for shaping our religious language, shaped this language. They are mostly male. No wonder that they see God as male, and then we are all expected to see God as male. And the problem with that, feminists theologians who have been so important to this tradition led us in understanding. A really big problem with that is that when we say that God is male, we begin to worship maleness as we understand it. We may even be worshiping men without realizing it. Well, they realized it and they said, "Hi, wake up." I say, 50 or so years ago, as I said, Theodore Parker, 100 years earlier, was saying, "Dear Mother, Father God." People have been worshiping gods of other genders, including goddesses and the divine feminine. But this was brought into the mainstream of Christianity and Judaism and other religions in our culture, including Unitarian Universalism, that had been dominated by these very male images. Now, as I said, I think it's true that when we elevate this language, male language, to speak of God only as male, then we're also elevating men. There's a religious word for this. It's idolatry. A word that means a lot to me, still. Worshipping something that is not worthy of being worshipped, or holding as divine something that is not divine or not the complete picture of the divine. As if there were such a thing as the complete picture. There never is. But speaking to Weija this week as we were planning the service really helped me understand more broadly what else that image can do. Because as Weija shared with you all, they saw and see in the images of God, the many, many different images of a male God in the Christian tradition, a kind of masculinity that we need to lift up, that isn't represented very much in our culture. And that's true too. It's not all a thundering, angry king or a harsh judge, but also a tender, loving parent who has the compassion to forgive us again and again, no matter how we stray, how we hurt that parent. That's a wonderful image, and I'm glad we have it. And I'm glad particularly that men in our culture have it, because our culture doesn't do so well by men giving a healthy version of masculinity. But this exactly gets on sort of the double edge that language has. I don't think this is just a theological problem, you see. I don't think it's just a religious problem. And this, fellow atheists, sister atheists, other atheists, is where atheists need this too. This is not just a problem about God. This is how language works. This is how images work. So let me say a little bit more about what I mean. I went off to, theology program, a religion program, and studied feminist theology, these many years ago, and encountered this wonderful idea about how limiting it was to have only male images of God. Yes, yes, yes. But I'd strode into that place as an atheist. I had left a patriarchal religion behind. It didn't work for me anymore. And although this wasn't particularly the reason, I said, yeah, not only is this God male, here's where I really have a problem. I have a problem with God being anthropomorphic at all, God having the shape of humanity. And I had really sound reasons for that, which is that I think the way that human beings make decisions, the way we act and so on, it's a very problematic model for the creator of all that is. Because, if somebody took and created this world the way we might create the things we create, machines and pottery out of clay and all the buildings and all the things we make, if God had created people like that, well, why were we such a mess? How could I worship the creator of this world, as broken and painful and evil as it can be, full of suffering? So I thought, like many atheists, I'm okay with the idea of the divine being a spirit of life. I'm okay with the force that moves through us and makes us choose the right thing that speaks to us in the voice of conscience. That's something I could worship. If you want to call that God, okay. Doesn't sound like the God I was taught about, but that could work, right? I could get behind worshiping love. But the thing is, all those things I just named, they're quite abstract. And it's all very well to point out the problems with anthropomorphizing God or masculinizing God. But the fact is, this is how language works because this is how we work. We are embodied beings, as feminist theology did a great job of reminding us. We live out our lives as animals. We breathe and sweat. We give birth. We die. We get sick. We bleed. We are bodies, and we seek out images. We create images that we can relate to. Just as women need to hear sometimes her hand. And non-binary people need to hear their hand. We all need to hear, oh, God has hands, perhaps, to understand we could be more like God. We can understand this force. It's not just an abstract force. It acts upon us. It shapes the world a little bit the way hands shape the world. That concreteness, that's important for our understanding. Because pure abstraction, it kind of leaves our own embodiedness behind, and it's hard for us to connect to. On the other hand, well, here's the problem with concreteness. It's very limiting. So one of the suggestions that has come out of these more creative theologies, and that many more mainstream, traditionally masculine theologies have begun to embrace, is, let's really lean into the many images that there are of God. There are a lot in the Bible. And yes, the pronoun is usually male, but not only. God speaks of God's self as a laboring woman, a woman in the throes of childbirth, giving birth to you, my people. What a wonderful image. Not complete either, but an image to think of God as what gives birth to us. What did give birth to us? And how thankful we must be to her, as well as to it, to them, that marvelous plural image. So here we have Spirit of Life, the closest that Unitarian Universalists come to having an anthem. And that's exactly what Carolyn McDade did. There's the Spirit, quite an abstract sort of image, a spirit of life. And then there's the wind and the sea and roots and wings, and we're invited to imagine the divine as something that holds us the way the roots hold a tree and won't let us go. And then we're invited to imagine the divine as wings that lift us and give us the freedom to go anywhere. And all of those come together so that we can't get too stuck, because that's the problem. That's the downside of concrete language. We create an image and then we get stuck. We get in a rut. And before you know it, we're the priest in a religion saying, no, you can't speak of God as female. No, God actually is male. That's why we say he. And you've gotten way off track. Way, way off track. Instead of trying to shape ourselves in the image of something that is mighty and complex and beyond our understanding, you're trying to bring God down to something that we already understand. And this tension in language, this tension in images and metaphors, I think, is exactly the tension that we have in religion, that we need to find ourselves in these images, and we need to be brought beyond ourselves. And Weija gave us such a beautiful exposition of how that happens to Hagar, as her name is in Hebrew. Hagar in Genesis, when she flees her enslavement, her terrible condition as a stranger and a sex slave in the home of Abraham and Sarah, with her child to be with her. And without perhaps expecting it or knowing, as Wei just said, the name of the God who came to her, she says, "You have seen me. You are the God who has seen me." Isn't that what we all need? Isn't that what we're trying to offer each other here for National Coming Out Day? Why I say, wear a pronoun sticker. It's your way of saying, I see you no matter what your gender. I see you. I will use the language that you use for yourself, because I want this to be a space where we are all seen. She was seen by the divine, and that is what she saw. Now, I've never had a mystical experience. I've longed for one. I've pretty much given up. I think I don't know, I'm a little too rooted and a little too unwinged maybe. But I have deep respect for people who do suddenly have the experience of, and this is a quote from a friend, being spoken to by the God they don't believe in. Because I know so many people, including in this congregation, people who are rooted and rational and don't want to just believe in wishful thinking, who are visited by a knowledge of something they did not even imagine existed. And that's what we're hearing from Hagar. Something she did not know that was beyond her experience of oppression and misery and going out into the desert where she thought surely she would die, came to her and said, "You are giving birth to generations. Your child will be born, he will live, he will thrive." She was blessed. This is what we need. We need to be seen as we are, and we need to be invited out into something more. And that's why the language that we use about God, or anything else that we want to move towards, has to be beyond us. It's a paradox. How can we see what is beyond us? How can we see what is beyond our own imaginations? Well, again, this variety of language can help, this multiplicity. Maybe the only language I use for God is a sort of benevolent force, but you use a shepherd, and you use a loving father, and you use a river. And maybe I can be invited into a way of living, a way of being that I've never seen before, that I've never imagined before, because your metaphors lead me there. That's why if we have to pick just one pronoun for God, I'm really glad the choir has been singing there every week. No one pronoun can do it, of course. Just like those images of God are not enough. No one prayer, one song could do it. But there is multiple, and reminds us God is of countless, countless forms. So I said I thought this was important to atheists, and I think it is for a couple reasons. One is this language, this expectation of what is meant by God, it shapes our whole culture. We all live in it. Those of us who believe in that kind of God or another kind of God or no God at all. So it's good to be mindful of what's going on there. Another is, I think a lot of atheists, as I was, are created by a God that's too small. And they never, in many cases, leave it behind. And I think they miss out too often on a chance to be in a community like this one. Because they walked away from a God who must have been cruel or callous, they think, to have created this world, or who was exclusively male or exclusively human, and that didn't work for them. And fine, you can go and have a marvelous life and never engage with a God concept again, absolutely. But I also want people to know there is a home for people who are seeking to move beyond what we are now. And in this home, people don't all believe the same thing. We don't all use the same images for the divine, the same pronouns for ourselves, the same metaphors for where we want to go and whom we want to be. I love that psalm, Psalm 8, because it begins with that focus on God's name, the mightiness of God's name. God's name, which is not given there. In many ways, in the Hebrew Bible and the Jewish Bible, God is the nameless one. But it talks about how this vastness, a mightiness of God who created with God's fingers this world, this universe, makes us feel, well, what is described in that psalm is kind of how we feel, I think, when we look up at the stars. Who am I? I am so small. I am so insignificant. You are so beyond anything I could understand, much less be. And isn't it amazing that I am a part of this? This edge is where we're invited to be, and where our language about God and each other has to invite us to be. I see you, here you are, this is who you are, and I want to invite you out into something bigger. A God who is bigger, a universe who is bigger, an understanding of humanity beginning with ourselves that is bigger, more wondrous, more complex than we knew before. As we will sing, if we're making God, that is making ourselves always something more than we can quite understand, than we have become yet. And then the words of the hymn we'll shortly sing. We may create a community that includes, embraces all the living. So may we do, in the name of all the gods. We have an opportunity now to put that little community in El Salvador over the top, to put good walls and a good roof around and over those little kids by giving generously to our justice partner as Melanie raises our spirits, raises us in singing. Look in your order of service for how to give. And you can give at the table as you leave as well if you prefer cash or a check.
Thank you, Rev. My pronouns, she, he, they, we.
Got it.
Because I am all of those things all at once and sometimes none of those things. And when I was teaching at a Montessori school, I had a kid ask me, "Are you a boy or a girl?" I said, "Yes." Okay. So here we go. Come on. Don't leave me hanging. You'll catch on really quickly. Everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. Come on now. Everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. We're saying everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Sit on down. Sit on down. Glad you're here. Stick around. Why? 'Cause everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. We're saying everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. Us and them, you and me. Everyone, A to Z. Why? 'Cause everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. We're saying everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. Come on in. Sit on down. Glad you're here. Stick around. Why? 'Cause everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come on in. We're saying everybody here's got a seat at the table. Everybody everywhere, come harmony on in. Yes.
From this very different tradition, but it says very much the same thing. Let us sing Break Not the Circle. It's 323 in your gray hymnal. You have the words there online in the order of service if you are online. Please rise in body or spirit.
It has really been my pleasure to be here with you. And I want to close with a song that was written by my dear friend Kate Munger, the founder of the Threshold Choir movement. So you get to say you, I, and we. And you'll get it. It goes like this. You are not alone. I am here beside you. You are not alone. I am here now. So look around at each other. Come on now. You are not alone. I am here beside you. You are not alone. I am here now. I am not alone. You are here beside me. I am not alone. You are here now. I am not alone. You are here beside me. I am not alone. You are here now. We are not alone. We are here together. We are not alone. We are here now. We are not alone. We are here together. We are not alone. We are here now. We are not alone. We are here together. We are not alone. We are here now. We are not alone. We are here together. We are not alone. We are here now. We are not alone. We are here together. We are not alone. We are here now.
Please remain standing if you are here and comfortable standing. Please make sure your mic is off so we can hear all our voices as we say our benediction. And please stay after the benediction for our greeting time and then coffee hour. Come and get to know each other in a deeper way. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen